Turkish strongman Recep Tayyip Erdogan has likely cemented his control over Turkey for the next decade by cruising to victory in Sunday's parliamentary and presidential elections. The victory culminates a 15-year transformation in Turkish politics, largely overseen and orchestrated by Erdogan himself. What does Erdogan's victory say about the state of Turkish democracy, as well as the state of the world at large? Sunday's election was the first time that Turks went to the polls since constitutional changes were made last year. Turkey's president used to hold a primarily ceremonial role, while the country was mainly ruled by a prime minister in a parliamentary democracy. But that changed last year when a referendum led by Erdogan's party overturned the existing government structure. They abolished the prime minister's role and cleared the way for Erdogan to extend the limits of his power. Among other things, Erdogan now has the official power to appoint ministers, issue decrees, and make judiciary appointments. While the constitutional reforms narrowly passed the referendum last year, Sunday's vote to install Erdogan as the president with all the powers granted by that referendum was far more emphatic. Erdogan won the presidential election, receiving 52.4% of the vote. His nearest challenger received 30% of the vote. Given that a whopping 88% of eligible voters cast a ballot in the election, this means that 13 million more Turks voted for Erdogan than the nearest contender. While not all elections are free and fair in Turkey, and indeed controlling the national press in the lead up to the election can certainly tilt the scales, as Erdogan did, the fact remains that a majority of Turks want Erdogan as their leader. Now, new executive powers will be transferred to Erdogan as a result of the 2017 change in the constitution that was pushed by Erdogan. And this has made Erdogan extremely strong, and making him able to rule till 2029. This tandem of parliamentary control combined with the new presidential powers gives Erdogan unmatched power in the modern era of Turkey. And it all happened rather democratically. As Erdogan himself in his acceptance speech said, quote, "Turkey has given a lesson in democracy to the entire world," end quote. Now, I don't want to carpet over Erdogan's human rights abuses and the silencing of dissent that has characterized Erdogan's rule. In the 2 years since the failed coup attempts to remove Erdogan from power, he has jailed around 160,000 people that he says were complicit in that attempt. Nevertheless, Erdogan is popular for a number of reasons in Turkey. Many in the population favor Erdogan because he believes in acknowledging and integrating Islam into the national dialogue much more. While modern Turkey was founded on the separation of Islam from politics, Erdogan has gradually pushed Islam back into the limelight ever since his time as the mayor of Istanbul. He called himself back then the Imam of Istanbul. And given that about 90% of Turks are Muslim, this resonates with many in the population. This return to a version of political Islam in Turkey is something we have reported on heavily, and with Erdogan's election, this will only increase. However, it's more than just Erdogan's Islamist leanings that garnered the votes. Erdogan has framed the narrative that it's in these uncertain times that a strong leader capable of acting decisively without the constraints of a large bureaucracy is just what Turkey needs. He campaigned on that, and the people in Turkey agree with him. Now, this transformation in Turkey towards nationalism is not some rare fluke. As managing editor of the Philadelphia Trumpet magazine, Joel Hilliker recently wrote, it is part of a trend that is affecting other major nations as well. For nearly 2 centuries, democratic free societies led by the British Empire and the United States have flourished. But now modern, sophisticated, wealthy and well-armed nations are reverting back to authoritarianism. In Asia, Vladimir Putin is dominating Russia. Xi Jinping is dominating China. Shinzo Abe is reviving militarism and nationalism in Japan. And then there's Rodrigo Duterte. He's bluntly, unapologetically and vulgarly scorning the rule of law in the Philippines. In Europe, record numbers of voters are electing nationalists. Viktor Orban in Hungary, Sebastian Kurz in Austria, Andrej Babis in the Czech Republic. And then in the Middle East, that flash of optimism during the Arab Spring's over. The region has emerged less democratic and ruled by autocrats, driven by tribalism and violent turf wars. By several measures, looking at this globally, the power of governments and individual leaders is growing, and the freedoms of people are eroding. People are recognizing that the world is getting more aggressive, more dangerous, and people are looking for security and protection, and strong men are promising to provide it. In Turkey, that man is Recep Tayyip Erdogan. And what just happened in Turkey is simply another indicator of this global trend. And now he has more power than any leader in Turkey since the fall of the Ottoman Empire after World War I. Now, if you would like to learn more about this global movement and also how it falls precisely in line with the Bible's description of the state of the world in our time, please go ahead and read the January issue of the Philadelphia Trumpet. In this special edition, we go through region after region of the world and show how the search for nationalistic strongmen is dominating global politics, and show how many of the leaders already fulfilling these offices are specifically documented in the Bible. Again, please download that issue of the Trumpet magazine, January 2018, to read all about this strongman rule.